After my massive victory against the dreaded Chaos Knights, the Screaming Ravens charged headfirst into the next game with renewed confidence, vigour, and determination, and were once again immediately destroyed. Last time we talked about luck and how it played a huge role in my victory through a beneficial card draw that granted me an absurd amount of victory points. This time, the opposite was true. This time, it was the dice that played their standard part of being completely bonkers at all stages of the game, which very quickly turned sure wins into bitter defeats. Honestly, the dice were just having a fun day in this game. When 6 Devastating Centurions, 3 Assault Centurions, a Storm Raven, and a Brutalis can't even manage to take out a single wounded Rampager through shooting, charging, and melee, you know something has gone very wrong. Here's just a brief taste of the kinds of dice insanity that were happening during this game. My Bladeguard saved 9 out of 10 4-up invulnerable saves against a Rampager, meaning I took only 1 casualty. Steve managed to save multiple 5-up saves where 1 failure would have resulted in a kill. Dying War Dog exploded, which caused enough damage to the Rampage behind it, which also then exploded. My Shrike Bomb, rolling 36 attacks, rolled 19 ones. Steve's spoiler missed half of his Gatling shots, then failed to wound 11 out of 18 of them on 3s. I rolled a 1 on my Brutalis charge ability because, of course, I fucking did. And Steve rolled these 2 1s. I don't remember what it was for, but I think it was important. And of course, the standard classics we'd have in all our games, like Bolt of Fire being the thing that does the most damage in a round to a vehicle instead of the, you know, anti-vehicle stuff. This is a running theme for both of us. Stubbers are bloody terrifying. 40k is a dice game, and the dice tell good stories. It's the same with something like D&D. If everything were just based on maths and averages, it'd be boring. The dice are there to keep things interesting. There's drama in the dice. A lucky 6 can save an otherwise untenable situation. A streak of high rolls makes heroes out of a humble guardsman. Or a bad roll can disgrace an arrogant demon prince. But from a gameplay perspective, what do you do when the dice are this extremely bad? How the hell are you meant to win when the rolls are this unlucky? There's simply nothing you could possibly do. If that's what you think, then fortunately I have found the solution. And it's quite simple, really. Buy a gun. No, wait, sorry, I've done that joke already. Here it is. This is classic advice that comes up in pretty much every competitive endeavor, especially in video games. Get good. But current Paul, what the hell was I meant to do in this position where I have 4 knights charging against my backman with no way to stop it? Don't be in that position, idiot. I'll go through this game to show you what occurred that eventually led to my loss, but first let's talk about that dice thing again. Despite all that guff about dice and all the weird and wonderful rolls that we had in the game, the reason I lost was not due to the dice. It was basically just all due to being bad. And Steve playing well. I don't want to make it sound like Steve only won because I'm through the game. He also plays well. We know this is a dice game. So why do I, and statistically you, always rely on them to do the correct thing? Dice will likely average out over an entire game or an entire series of games, but each roll you make individually can always swing wildly, so you will always need to account for that. Before we run through the game, let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. Recently, I played a game on Tabletop Simulator against the combined prowess of YouTube and Twitch chat. I absolutely smashed them, but there were several situations of the dice spiking for both of us. The one I want to focus on, however, was right at the start of the game. I moved my Storm Raven up here to take some line-of-sight shots onto my Oath of Moment target, the Lord Discordant on Hellstalker. Quick side note, I really like this one. It's so cool, but my god, is it bad. 5-up invuln? Really? Anyway, I didn't have much to do on turn 1 except objective-y stuff, so mostly I wanted to stage for round 2, and because I had Oath of Moment on the Disco Lord, I figured I'd fly my Storm Raven over and give it a punt. Maybe some lucky shots will blast it off the table immediately, and that's at least a kill on the board for me. So first of all, after moving, I was out of range for half my weapons, so no Melter or Hurricane Bolters, just 2 Stormstrike missiles and my Las Cannon. With the Tech Marine buff and Oath of Moment, this bad boy will surely manage to get out, because Las Cannon's hitting on 2s with full rerolls, and wounding on 2s with full rerolls. Nope. Okay, it's 2 Stormstrike missiles hitting on 2s, re-rolling, and then wounding on 2s, but not re-rolling with a wound. 1 goes through, and it's saved. Huh? Okay, so that was just really bad dice, right? Let's look at this statistically. Rolling a 2+ with a reroll is close to 100%. 97% chance of succeeding, I think, if I've done the math right. But yada, 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 let's say all 3 shots go through. The Lord Discordant has a 33% chance of saving. So on average, if I hit all 3, one of those is going to be saved. Let's be charitable and say the Las Cannon goes through and the other Storm Strike goes through. To get a kill, I still need to roll a 6 on the damage. So realistically, this was probably not going to get a kill.
And then you add Kurt Angle to the mix, your chances of winning drastically go down.
But none of that matters. What matters is this situation. My Storm Raven is just kind of hanging out here with a lot of potentially very angry Chaos Gribblies with big guns who could probably get in range and gun the Storm Raven down. Ignore the dice rolls for a sec. Whether I kill that Lord Discordant or not, what was my plan here? Well, my plan was to try and kill the Lord Discordant. Okay. Great. Now what? My Storm Raven, with its very scary anti-vehicle payload, is now very far away from the targets I'd actually want to point it at. So now, chat can just flank everything round the other way, out of danger, and now I'm kind of stuck over here, fighting suboptimal targets. Nice one, Paul. I hope this illustrates the point I'm trying to make here. Yes, the dice were awful, but even if the dice were good, it's not exactly a winning move, is it? A winning move would have been buying a Metcase 2 over at tabletop.com using code Paul25 for 25% off. The situation with my game against the Chaos Knights was slightly different, but nevertheless it was my mistake that cost me so heavily. So how did I get into this horrific situation? The primary mission was the Ritual, which is the one where you set up objective markers in no man's land rather than them being there already. So I'd moved my Assault Centurions to set up an objective marker here, and then moved my Storm Raven over to drop stuff off in turn 2 to back them up. My Bladeguard and Judicia with the Blade Driven Deep were infiltrated here to stop and try and move block for any potential charges. All that really managed to do was allow Steve a charge target for his Rampager, so the Rampager managed to get right up in my grill, and this second Rampager also managed to get a charge onto the Assault Centurions and wipe them out. As I mentioned before, I was lucky that the Bladeguard rolled really high in the invuln, but it just meant I had to fall them back so I didn't get any penalties to shooting. I drop off the Brutalis and Melt Centurions and teleport my Devastate Centurions over to here. With my bikes, I do nothing because I'm completely misusing them to the point where I've removed them from the list, but in playing another game with them and going through this video, I've second guessed myself because these bikes would have been pretty good in preventing what was about to happen. And then put Oath of Moment on this War Dog. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. Let's start with the plan. What I was hoping would happen. A mix of Brutalis and Storm Raven shooting brings this knight lower, and then charge plus Brutalis melee should kill it. Things are looking bad. I can sprinkle in a little extra missile shots with Centurions who get rerolls to hit because of the knight being on an objective. The las cannons plus strike from the shadows go into the War Dog to take it out to prevent getting mobbed by two scary Melter Stabby Doggers. Oath of Moment goes there to ensure I take that War Dog out because I'm confident I don't need it on two Rampagers. If I kill this knight in shooting, the Brutalis can move over with these Assault Centurions and charge both into this Rampager. Otherwise, the Assault Centurions can work with their Melters and Drill Fists and probably take it out. If I kill both these big knights, I'm in a prime position to get some good scoring. Even if my Devastating Centurions do get charged by this other War Dog, I've got backup coming to clear it, and then my Devastating Centurions will be free to shoot again. Easy win, solid plan. I can see nothing going wrong, apart from the fact that neither Rampager died. And in fact, my Brutalis dies, meaning that the Rampager has free reign to pluck my Storm Raven out the sky and tombstone it into the ground. The other Rampager is able to fall back, allowing a War Dog to come in and block my path, so I can't even get back to hold objectives. That was where then the explosion thing comes in later, but at that point it was inconsequential. My Devastated Centurions are locked in combat forever with no backup to get them out and no clear way to retreat. What a complete disaster. Were the dice bad? I mean, yeah, they weren't great. Steve got some pretty good rolls on his saves, and I didn't roll that hot on my hits, but that should be the expectation. And I keep failing to expect it. Hubris, thy name is Paul. Always have a backup plan. Always go for the overkill. Doing the same amount of damage I did, distributed differently, would have meant 2 dead Rampagers, and a live Brutalis, and a functional Storm Raven. Ignoring the movement being shockingly bad, we'll get to that. What should I have done in this situation? Well, I should have Oath of Moment the Despoiler not on the objective. I should have fired everything from the Devastated Centurions into the Despoiler on the objective, because that gives Devastated Centurions full rerolls to hit. If it's still alive, fire the Storm Raven at it. And if it's still alive, fire the Brutalis. And then if it's still alive, the Assault Centurions. If after all of that, it's still alive, that's up for debate. Either charge Brutalis and use Tank Shock to make sure it is dead. If it's still alive, then that's just unfortunate at that point. Or ignore it if it's on 1 wound or something and charge everything into the Oath Knight and fight it in melee. At any point during this flowchart, when the first knight dies, everything else goes into the other one. Even in this situation, I would still get charged by the War Dogs, and the Brutalis and Assault Heroes are no longer in a position to really help. That still sucks, but I can still get out of that a bit quicker. It's not the worst thing in the world. Going further, and why I do really enjoy making these videos, because the mistakes and gameplay improvements are just so obvious in hindsight. These are really good ways to analyze my gameplay and try and improve. Try being the operative word. The Storm Raven should have moved back here behind this ruin. The bikes should move over here to block the War Dogs and also here to block the route into my backline. The Devastated Centurions can then come back here further away at the back of my deployment zone, so then use Strike from the Shadows and not get charged. I use Strike from the Shadows in my original position because it could be used against the War Dog, but it couldn't be used against the Rampager. The same shooting sequence still applies, but I'm in a much better position, much safer position, and I'm not wasting the time of my bikes, which were basically doing nothing thing because I, for some reason, just don't know how to use them. And at this point, look, maybe things still go completely tits up. Maybe Steve's rolling nothing but 6s for the rest of the game. At that point, yeah, the dice are to blame. But in this game, despite all of these wild examples of the dice being really comical, they weren't obscenely comical. I mean, some of them were really bad, but rather than worrying about the dice, the more you think about what happens if things don't go your way, the better. Yeah, I rolled 19 1s with my Shrike Bomb, but it was a stupid play, so even if I rolled all 6s, it would have not changed the game at all. And this is hard. This is a difficult thing to do during a game when you're trying to play on the fly and play to a tournament time frame, because we're kind of practicing for that. But I hope that by showing you some examples and exploring this kind of situation, you'll be reminded of this when you next attempt to turn one yeet your Storm Raven into the middle of the board and serve up a tasty smorgasbord of armored delights to your opponent. Paul, you stupid mother. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this, go and like and subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. And if you really enjoy this, you can become a member or Patreon like all of these fine folk. Audio support makes this channel possible, so thank you very much. And if you join these fine examples by becoming a member or Patreon, then I will personally come to your house and replace all of your useless Imperial Guard models with Centurions. Disclaimer, Paul is bad at stuff will not actually come to your house because he still wants to sully his hands by touching disgusting guard models.